Hello. Uh, it's great to be with you again. This is Tea for a Druid, for a Druid, for Druids, and with a Druid, number 30. On a lovely, hot, sunny day. Feels a bit like I imagined Louisiana would feel when I went down to the Gulf Coast gathering. I thought it was going to be as hot as this, but it wasn't. And lovely to see you arriving. So do say you're here. And good afternoon, Art, from Louisiana. Yes. Well, you'd feel very at home here. It's very hot, Art. I just got back from Spain, where it was actually slightly cooler. It was 27 degrees instead of 29 or 30. So, oh, it's 100 with you. But I think that's Fahrenheit, isn't it? So what I'd like to do is something a bit different. I'd like to start with a meditation. And as you're gathering, do say hi, but then do settle down and let's begin with meditating. Because I've got two reasons, really. One is because I'd love to do that meditation that I was planning to do with you last time until the broadband failed. And secondly, it leads very nicely into our continuing exploration, because what I want to do today is explore more deeply the question of the mystic and the magician. So, and to finish with an exercise. So here Buenos Aires, how lovely, and the Highlands, and Louisiana, more Louisians, West Sussex, Chico, California, fantastic. From Palmerston North in New Zealand, the other side of the world, way down there. Hello, AD. That's great. It's such a lovely feeling, everybody gathering. You know, Stephanie and I were in Spain at a wedding of a OBOD member on Saturday, and it was just lovely. You know, 35 people had come from South America and all over the place to gather at this wedding, and just this feeling of coming together, just holding hands in the circle, feels so good. So, okay, so let's just begin by getting settled in the sacred grove. You've arrived here in this clearing, and you can choose to keep your eyes open, or you can choose to close your eyes to better concentrate on the experience. And as you close your eyes, you can already start to feel that you're settling. And you can feel the earth beneath you. And you can feel the way the earth supports you, and at the same time takes your weight, allows any excess tension just to drop away into it. And then in the same time, it energizes you. And you can feel the slow heartbeat of the earth, the slow healing energy of the earth flowing into you. You sense your companions around you, and you can sense still more companions arriving as you begin to settle into the meditation. And then you focus on the trees around you. You sense their roots deep in the earth, their trunks soaring upwards, and then their branches and leaves high above you. And you breathe in deeply, and you can smell the trees. And you can feel the life of the trees flowing into you. You can feel their protection and their power. And then you become aware of the sky above you. Bright blue sky, its sunshine and its light flowing into you, filling you with energy and vitality. And you feel the energy of the sky meeting the energy of the earth within the center of your being. And now feeling centered, seated in the circle. You allow yourself to close your psychic eyes, your inner eyes, and just to let go to that sense of being at one with all, at one with the earth beneath you, with the trees around you, with your companions in the circle. No effort, just letting go, just allowing that sense of oneness with the sky and with the earth, with the trees, with all being. And just being aware of breathing in and breathing out if you need a focus. Just breathing in and breathing out. Feeling at one with all of life, all of being. And then feeling calm and feeling focused. You allow your inner eyes to open, just slowly and gently, so that you see the ground beneath you, just around where you're seated. And you feel an energy flowing up your spine, down your arm, your dominant arm. That's if you write with your right hand, that would be your right arm. If you write with the left, it'll be your left arm. You feel the energy flowing right down through your forefinger, and just see yourself pointing your forefinger, just tapping it very gently on the ground. And where you tap the ground, just see a flower instantly growing up, a beautiful flower just growing up. And then try touching the ground in another place a few inches away and see another flower growing up. And then you realize how quickly this happens. You tap the ground several times. One, again, again, again. Until you have a little carpet of flowers around you. Smell the perfume of the flowers. If they don't have a perfume, try touching them with your finger just to make them have a perfume. And you might even like to look around at your companions in the circle, and perhaps you can see individuals seated around in this circle with little carpets of flowers in front of each of them. And then you close your inner eyes again, bring your hand down, and sensing yourself at one with earth and sky, with the trees around you. And becoming aware of your body now, relaxed and energized. Slowly you allow your awareness of the sacred grove to fade as you become aware of being seated in front of your computer or your tablet or your phone, here, now, this evening. And so I appreciate that you might have arrived halfway through that, because I know a lot of people arrive a little bit late. But I hope you enjoyed it if you did arrive on time. And of course, you can always go back and try it again. So in that meditation, what we were doing is we were connecting to that part of us inside that is the mystic, that seeks to become one with all of being, to merge, to surrender to oneness. And then when we imagined using our finger as a magic wand, we connected with that desire in us to create, to give, to be of use in the world. If you like, we were being passive and then active, but that doesn't give the whole picture, does it? It's somehow more than being active and passive. But that's something to do with it. I created a small forest of sweet peas, says Jessie. That's nice. That's lovely. And so you remember Celia saying, I'm without any words. Lily of the Valley is the flower that I had. Beautiful, with a lovely smell, of course. So you remember, if you were here having tea last Monday evening, you remember that we explored whether you felt you were a mystic or a magician. And I asked you to say which one you felt you were, and we talked a little bit about the definitions of that, what they can be. And I had a hunch at the time that magicians might be extroverts and mystics introverts, because magicians are, in the way that we were talking about, are people who are active in the world, they engage with the world and attempt to make changes in the world. And mystics tend to want to disengage from the world of appearances to become one with deity. And so I asked you to tell me, and I can give you the results now of the survey, which was really interesting, how wrong I was. I was only able to take a small sample of 64 responses, even though thousands of people watch these tea sessions, hundreds of people comment on them, but actually to extract the data from the comments, particularly in the sort of rather poor way that I handled that poll. I should have used an online poll, as somebody suggested. I was only able to be really certain about 64 responses. 56 of those 64 people said they were introverts, with only 8 people declaring themselves as extroverts. Isn't that interesting? 25 people identified themselves as introverted magicians, and 21 as introverted mystics, and then 10 as introverted mystic magicians. And you know the old joke that ask 10 druids for their opinion and you'll get 15 answers. Of course, there were plenty of people who had answers that couldn't fit into these simple categories. So only a small minority identified as extroverts, 3 people as magicians, 4 as mystics, and 1 as an extroverted mystic magician. So this is interesting. So it requires more research. Perhaps people drawn to the spiritual path, to magic and mysticism, tend to be more introverted than extroverted. Perhaps that's the case. Perhaps it's more about the people who comment. That could be a confusing factor. We don't know. But it was great to engage with you around this. And there were some fascinating comments. Somebody said, for instance, I'm a magician introvert, but I'm not convinced that there's an important correlation between the two. And you seem to be right in that feeling. A more interesting relationship is between magicians and visual artists or craftspeople, and mystics and musicians and dancers. Broadly put, don't personalities divide between those preoccupied with form, magicians, and those preoccupied with formlessness, mystics? That's a very interesting question. Let's do a poll on that at some time to see whether musicians and dancers tend to be more mystically oriented and visual artists and craftspeople more magically oriented. But and here's another comment that came in that I thought was really important. In this comment, he said, to me, it all boils down to this question. Having located the magician inside himself and the mystics inside himself, he said, when it boils down to this question, when is it appropriate to take action and aim to change things actively, versus when is it wise to just observe and witness a situation without the impulse to interfere. I'm an introvert and used to be a magician, but changed into a mystic during the ovate grade, that's of the OBOD studies, when I realized that things are like they are, often for a good reason. It's absolutely fine taking action to achieve goals or if someone needs help, but tampering with a situation just out of good intentions often makes things worse. It's not easy to distinguish, but sometimes it is our responsibility not to act. And that's a really good point. And when I said he, I think it was a he, but I apologize if it's a she, who you are. Thank you for that comment. And then let me just read you one third one, which is comments that people made about changes that they've experienced over time. I used to be very introverted, but have become more extrovert. Interestingly, this happened when I made the transition from mystic to magician a few years ago. So, and a number of people talked about how they had started to shift. And I thought it would be interesting to look at this in the light of psychology, and in particular, a theory called subpersonality theory, which is very highly developed in psychosynthesis, but is found in all sorts of ways in other psychologies. I mean, even starting with dear old Sigmund, Freud, who came up with the idea of the id, the superego, and the ego, which somebody described once as depicting a human as somebody with a gorilla in the basement, with a rather nervous school teacher trying to mediate between the gorilla in the basement and the person in the middle, the ego. So the nervous school teacher was the superego, and the gorilla was the id. So even Freud had some sort of model of the self, of different parts of the self. And if we think about it, this makes a huge amount of sense. We can all identify the inner critic, the inner slob, perhaps. Will anybody own up to an inner slob? There's the the inner child, of course, which a lot of us are familiar with. There's the inner old person that a lot of us have inside us. There's the victim, the martyr, the tyrant. When you start to see yourself as a cast of characters, it's hugely instructive. And it's a great work to do. And of course, the more courage you take with this, the more honest you are, you're able to admit to the slob, and maybe even to the criminal and the fraudster and all the shadow dark sides and the light sides as well. So yes, Jane's admitted to the inner slob. Hurrah, Jane. And Pat has an inner and an outer slob. A range of sophisticated slob characters inside. Fantastic. So, and of course, this wonderful sort of motley crew is what we carry around with us. And if we don't believe we have this motley crew, people who kind of live in the box and they're always the same kind of person. They don't dare just to allow a different part of themselves to express themselves. That's one of the great values of psychotherapy and of spiritual work. So let's home in on one particular inner character that I suspect we all have, which is the spiritual seeker. That's kind of why we're all here together. We might have our inner child and our lover and our chef, all these different things, but we've all got a spiritual seeker, I would suggest. And we can then start to refine that and say, okay, well, what sort of character is my spiritual seeker? Is it a monk, a nun? Is it a guru, an inner guru? Is it a sage? Maybe it's all those things. Maybe we have a variety of inner characters to express different aspects of the seeker within. So in a way, I think you can take the mystic and the magician as two aspects or two sub-personalities, which reflect perhaps the spiritual seeker inside. The mystic who is seeking union, who is seeking surrender, who seeks silence and simplicity, and the magician who is seeking to be an active force in the world for good,